Hello everyone, a very good evening, and once again a warm welcome to online learning portal of Sleepy IAS. My name is Ravi Pathak, and I'm going to take your classes on public administration optional subject. All right, so let's begin our classes, and we'll see how public administration, as an optional, would be definitely helpful for you to score good marks in mains. This is one of the most favorite optional subject as far as the list of optional subjects are concerned in UPSC because of its short syllabus and comprehensive understanding of this particular subject. So let's begin our discussion today as far as our optional public administration is concerned. So I'll be sharing the screen and hope it is visible to you. So now when we talk about public administration here, first of all, I'll give you the a brief overview. I'm assuming that we all are a beginner and we are starting with this particular subject. So let's try to see this particular subject, in overview manner so that it would be helpful for you to decide about this particular course. Now, when we talk about public administration as an optional, it is nothing but one of the 40 plus optionals which are provided by the UPSC. And why we should opt for public administration as a subject? Because since you're preparing for UPSC, right, hoping to qualify IAS, IPS, and other All India services. So basically, this one subject is there which actually tells you about administrative skills. And we all know that after qualifying UPSC, you'll be entering into the administrative services. So it's good to know about the administration. Plus, this subject help you in the pre-entry level, that is before getting into the UPSC as your optional. Plus, it will also help you in your post-entry level preparation. So what do you mean by post-entry level? Post-entry means after selection, when you'll be sent for training in different institutions like LBS, NA, Missouri. There also you're going to be what? Dealing with this particular subject because generally they are law, administration, economics, current affairs. All these issues would be taught to you during a foundation course, which will run approximately 24 to 28 months. So the subject is going to be helpful there also. Now, as a beginner, when we talk about public administration, then comprehensively, this particular subject is divided into two papers, paper 1 and paper 2. And in all, it contains 26 units. So there are 12 units or 12 chapters in paper 1 and 14 units in paper 2. So collectively, we can say that we'll be dealing with 26 units. Now, out of this 26 units, right, there are 9 chapters, in whole subject, which are very important and which gives you the coverage of more than 300 plus marks. The overall paper 1 and paper 2 comprise of 250 and 250 marks each, that is collectively 500 marks, out of which the 300 plus marks will be from this 9 chapters, where the 9 chapters would be 5 chapters from paper 1 or 5 units from paper 1 and 4 units from paper 2. All the units are important, but these 9 units are so that they will give you a wider coverage if you see the previous year question paper. Like for example, in paper 1, and the first chapter, that is introduction, administrative thinker or administrative thought, administrative behavior, right? These first 3 chapters are very important. Then we have accountability and control, and then related with financial administration. So like that, 5 chapters. Similarly, paper 2 will have 4 topics, that is union government and administration, state government and administration, district government, right? Or district administration, what we can say, plus local government, and a topic on civil services as well. So this 4 units and 5 units from paper 2 and paper 1 respectively will definitely give you a good coverage, that is 300 plus. And remaining, when we talk about the 15-16 chapters, that would be what? Covering the 200 marks worth question. So we'll follow a particular strategy and accordingly we'll. Now, let's start with our paper one. And when we talk about paper one, right, then first we'll start with the first unit or first chapter, that is nothing but titled as Introduction. So we'll study about introduction. Now what our approach would be. So when we study the introduction, basically this chapter, see, I'm starting it assuming that you all are beginner. If you have studied this subject before, then definitely you'll have some idea. So take it as a content enrichment class. And if you are new, then obviously it is all the more easy to start from basic. So when we talk about introduction will have 9 subunits in it. So there are 9 subunits in this, right, which we'll do one by one. Like for example, the first subunit starts with a topic called meaning, scope, and significance. So let's say this is the first topic. Similarly, the second topic we have is Wilsonian vision or vision of Woodrow Wilson. So Wilson's vision, we can say, what Woodrow Wilson has said about public administration. Basically, when we study, you'll come to know that Woodrow Wilson is considered to be the father of public administration. Then similarly, third topic we'll study about evolution of public administration, that how it has evolved as a subject over a period of time. Like that, we have 9 such small subunits as a part of paper 1, chapter 1. Now, what our approach would be? Our approach would be to study this particular topic so that on every topic we should have around 20 to 25 points. Here also when we study, we'll try to generate 20 to 25 points. Same thing here also we'll do. Why we are doing so? Because these points will help us in writing the answers which are going to be asked in UPSC paper. So our approach throughout the option would be, for each and every topic we'll have around 20 to 25 points. We'll understand them, we'll remember them, and we'll practice them through question and answer format so that whenever a question comes from that topic, we should be in a position to write a good answer. And in UPSC, if you see, then generally 12 to 15 points are supposed to be written as far as the questions are concerned. But if we have 25 points, even if we forget some of the points, at least we'll remain left with 10 to 15 points so that we can complete our answer. So that's how we are going to proceed. Right? Now, taking our discussion forward, as I told you, that let's try to understand the first topic, that is nothing but the meaning, scope, and significance of public administration. Right? So you can see there are 3 subcomponents of it: meaning, scope, and significance. The first thing we are going to go ahead is nothing but we'll try to understand the meaning of the word public administration. Right. Now, before understanding the term public administration or understanding the meaning, right, because it is very clear that the term public administration comprises of 2 terms, one public and other administration. So we'll understand the meaning of administration and then combine it with the word public, and then we'll see what exactly the public administration means. And once we get to know or understand the meaning, probably we'll attempt to define the term public administration. So we'll try to build a definition also. So whenever the question comes, we can start our answer with defining the public administration if the question demands so. So that would be our approach. But before that, how the subject came into existence, if we look at from the evolutionary perspective, then it would be all the more easy for us to understand the meaning of this particular subject. So evolutionary perspective, or you can say we'll look at from the historical perspective. So either evolutionary perspective or historical perspective. This will give us a brief insight, though it may not be asked in the question. Or when we are going to see the topic that is called evolution of public administration, then probably we'll take that in detail. As of now, I'm just trying to make you familiar with this particular thing so that you should be in a position to understand these 2 words carefully. Now, when we talk about public administration, right, as a discipline wise, if you compare it with other subjects, like, if you compare it with subjects like history, geography, or sociology, right, etc., then public administration is what? Relatively a newer discipline, or we can say a new subject, because theoretically, when we talk about in theory sense, then theoretically, the birth of public administration took in the second half of 19th century. So, second half of 19th century, or to be precise, in 1887, the discipline of public administration was born, theory-wise. But if we see public administration as a practice, then you'll find that it was there right from day one of our civilization. So the moment we have started living in a civilized society, right, from that day we can say that we have started practicing the administration. Though the word might not have been used as administration or public administration, but definitely that practice was there, right, from day one of our civilization. So whether you talk about Greek civilization, whether you talk about Indus Valley civilization, or whether you talk about Mohenjo-daro civilization, we all know that all these great civilizations were able to survive, and they were able to manage their affair because something like administration was there in existence. Otherwise, it was just like a food gatherers or hunters kind of stage. So first aspect is theory-wise, public administration is relatively new, just a 150-year-old discipline. But if you see practice-wise, so it might be there, from day one when we started bootstrapping of our civilization. Next thing, when we talk about public administration, basically public administration is considered to be a daughter discipline or born out of a mother discipline that is called political science. So when we see the evolution of the discipline, then we find that basically the political science was a mother discipline, and from there the public administration was carved out in 1887 by a very famous person known as Woodrow Wilson, you know, who is also regarded as father of public administration. So he wrote an essay, The Study of Administration, which was published in Political Science Quarterly, and from then onwards, this discipline gained the momentum. And from that time till today, it is kept evolving, or we can say growth. However, when we see the political science, then the evolution of political science also can be traced as what? From the philosophy, right? So philosophy is considered to be the mother of all the discipline because it was somewhat the discussions in the meta world, and from there what evolved is political science, and from political science what we got is nothing but public administration. So linkages are like this. Like for example, if you might have heard about the people like Socrates, right, or Sukrat, what we call, right. So a Greek philosopher who started talking about what? The logic and the reasoning and the dialectics in his approach to justify theory. Before Socrates, the pre-Socrates scholars were there, no doubt about it, right? But they were what? They were talking about universe. They were talking about formation of Earth, the Ionian school of thought, that is matter and all those things. Now, definitely, when the Earth was established, then only the society might have existed. So, like from that, and then when Socrates comes to, let's say, for example, society, and then from society, the incarnation of state, in which the larger contribution goes to people like Plato, Aristotle, in the beginning, till Machiavelli in the modern times. So, like that, we can say these are the political scholars. Prior to that, I mean, Plato, we can say Socrates, more related with the philosophy, or pre-Socrates, Greek scholars were there who were talking about these things. So, just to give you the perspective that how public administration had came over a period of time. So, if we conclude that, simply what we can say, the things might have started with what? The things might have started with philosophy, right? Then it went on to political science, and then from political science, we carve out the discipline of public administration. But don't worry, as I've told you, we'll discuss more about evolution of the discipline when we study the third subunit of first chapter, that is evolution of the discipline or evolution of the public administration. But that's how the linkages are. However, when we study public administration, it is called multidisciplinary in approach. Now, why we call it multidisciplinary in approach? Because here, when we talk about public administration, then actually for establishing a new discipline, we have taken the content from multiple subjects. That's why we call it multidisciplinary. So here what we can say, right, that public administration will contain some aspect of political science, some aspects of philosophy. It will take some information from history also, some from sociology also, some from anthro also, some from environmental studies also, right? Some from management also, and we can keep it miscellaneous also. So there are what the syllabus of public administration is nothing but clubbing out, picking out something from some subjects, bringing it together and making it a discipline. So we can say this subject has a multidisciplinary approach as well, right? So all these things we'll study, but for time being, let's revert to our first set of discussion. That is nothing but when we talk about attempting to understand the meaning of the term public and administration and its definition, right? So when we talk about this particular thing, then let's try to analyze these two words. Now, as I've told you, to understand the meaning of the term public administration, we have to understand two words. One is public, other is administration. And once we understand these two words, then we can club them, right? So let's start with the first word, that is administration. The first word is public, but we'll start with administration. Now, when we try to understand the literature of public administration, what is the problem? The vocabulary of public administration had been taken from mostly the Latin language, to some extent the Greek language, and we also had a passing reference of some Spanish, French, German, Polish language as well. Why? Because the contributor of public administration, that is the scholars of public administration, they were belonging to different countries. Some of them were scholars of political science, some of them were scholars of sociology, some of them were scholars of history and so on. And generally, Latin is considered to be mother of all language, just like our Sanskrit, right? So most of the term we'll find in public administration dictionary belongs to Latin or Greek. Similarly, when we talk about administration, basically administration is the English version of the Latin word that is known as ad plus ministere. So this word is ad plus ministere. Now, it's a combination of two words, ad plus ministere in Latin, right? So we are talking about this particular language now. And what does it mean? It simply implies what? To serve. So the basic meaning of ad plus ministere is nothing but to serve or to care for people. So to serve, to care, etc. is nothing but related with administration. So when we say administration, that means what? Either to serve the people or the citizen, or to care for them is nothing but administration. So what we'll do? We'll try to have understanding of administration in our terms also. But prior to that, there were, as I said, scholars associated or some scholars associated. You can, whenever you study a subject like public administration, philosophy, political science, there are going to be the scholars associated with that subject. So scholars of public administration, they had also defined the term administration in public. We'll see that also. But first we are trying to understand the meaning of the word administration. So what do you have to remember? Administration is nothing but derived from a Latin term, which is a combination of two words, ad and ministere, and which simply means what? To serve or to care for. Is that clear? Okay. So after understanding this, let's try to understand some of the people also, scholars also, who had precisely attempted to define the term administration or public administration. Now, when we talk about the public administration, right? Actually, later on when we study our subject, we'll study some scholars, but don't worry. Even if you don't remember the name now, nothing to worry. Let's say, for example, Herbert Simon. Now, what happens in public administration, in public administration, there are 25 plus thinkers, which we'll study in our second unit, that is administrative thoughts. But there are more than 100 plus scholars who are associated with one or the other discipline. So they had also given some meanings and definition. Herbert Simon is one of those 25 thinkers which we have to study in our syllabus. He was very popular for his decision making concept, right? Theory of decision making. So we'll study him in detail, but what he says about the word administration. So according to Herbert Simon, administration is nothing but he defines. Now we are taking the definition given by the scholars. It is not our definition. So according to him, administration is nothing but he said that it's a activity, right? It's an activity which is carried out by group of people. So let's say there are certain group of people, you know, who are performing this activity. So for administration, the first thing we need is we need some group of people, right? So let's say they are doing an activity. For what? Actually, the group of people are performing some activity to achieve some common goals, or we can say some common objectives. So it's coming together of certain group of people for what? For performing or undertaking certain activity, so that they can reach to a common goal, or they should be in a position to achieve their common object. As simple as that. See, some of you may not understand in the beginning, but slowly and gradually, when we'll see a couple of more definitions or meaning, then you'll be able to understand. Similarly, there was a person known as John Wheat. These names might be sounding alien to you, but don't worry. Slowly, you are going to get familiar with them. Now, what he says that public administration is nothing but it's a determined action, right? So it's a determined action taken. It's a determined action taken in pursuit of conscious purpose. In pursuit of a conscious purpose. So here also what you can see is saying that it's an action taken, that is activity being performed, taken in pursuit of, that is to achieve some what? Common goal or objective or purpose. So here also we can say that what he's trying to explain, what? That public administration is nothing but it's an action which is taken in pursuit of a conscious purpose. Similarly, we can quote another scholar popularly known as E.N. Gladden. Again, I'm requesting you, don't worry about these names. Slowly and gradually, you'll get familiar with these names. Now, what he says, according to him, administration is a long and slightly pompous word, right? Complicated, pompous word. So, administration is a slightly long and pompous word, but it has a humble meaning, right? So, it's a slightly long and pompous word, but it has a humble meaning. And what is that meaning? That is to look after or to take care of the people. So, according to him, what he's trying to say that though administration as a word sound to be slightly long and pompous, that means basically it's nothing but what? A lengthy kind of word, but it has a seriously humble meaning. That means this is something, administration is something which tries to look after or take care of the people or care of the people or the citizen of the particular state or the territory. So that is how what Ian Gladden defines. Now, with all this, what we came to know? We came to know that nothing but administration is what? Administration is nothing but it's a sort of activity. Activity by whom? By two or more than two people. Right. That is, we can say group of people. And this two or more than two people or group is trying to what? Perform that activity so that there should be some common goals or objectives which can be achieved. Right. So this is what their purpose. But the main problem is how this group of people would be brought together, how they would be directed to actually perform a common activity or a activity which have a common purpose. Right. So for that, what we need here, what we need to understand, we need some supporting entity, and that entity is nothing but known as organization. Because if there is an organization, then this organization will do what? This will actually bring those group of people. It will set up the objective. It will make those people to perform that activity so that they can achieve their common goals. So what we can say administration is, it's a sort of organizational activity which is performed by a certain number of people with what? With having a conscious mindset to achieve a common object. Now, the people working in the organization may have a different objective of their own, but they will be working for collective objective of the organization. So once they fulfill the objective of organization, definitely their own personal interest or objectives also would get fulfilled. Like suppose you and I is working in some company. So for what we are working? We are working for salary. We are working for some money. But if we don't achieve the target set by the organization, if the organization will not grow, how come we are going to get the payments? How come we are going to get our desires fulfilled? So it is what? It is nothing but working for a common goal, which is the organizational goal. And then with that common goal, our personal goals also will get fulfilled. That is the domain of what we can say administration is. So I hope some bit of clarity is there as far as the word administration is concerned. Now, moving further, right, the other word we have is public, right? So now we understood the meaning of the word administration. Now let's talk about public. So when we attach the word public, what does it mean, right? So here, the public word is nothing but it's a synonym somewhat like for government. Or we can say it is a synonym which is related with the state. So it talks about the state or the government. But suppose it is not public, it is private administration, because administration can be in public also and it can be in private also. Then here, if we use the term government, then we make use of the term private. If we use the term state, in place of that, we can use the market, right? So that's a corollary, or we can say significance of this term. That means what? The moment we use the term public, basically that administrative activity is performed for government or by government and on behalf of the state. So public is something which is what? Related with the government institution, or we can say state. Now, as I told you, or you might have studied that state is nothing but what? State. Politically, it is defined as, an entity which consists of four important elements. Namely, when we say state, the first element is it must have a government. Second, it must have some people, that is population. Third, it must have territory. And fourth, it must be sovereign. This is the political definition of the term state. So very clearly we can see the government is nothing but part of the state, or all the actions are performed by the government on behalf of state, because state has given the power to the government. Now, as far the state is concerned, these are the four what? Component of the state. Parallelly, there are three important elements of the state. So when we talk about the element of the state, then you might have came across this circle, when we talk about the state, where we say that state has three important components known as legislature, executive, and judiciary. Now I'm saying why I'm explaining you this because if you've done your polity classes, then you might be knowing a bit of it, right? Here, when we talk about the state, the question is when we say public administration, that means public administration will deal with what? Public administration will deal with state. And state means what? It will deal with the legislative activities, executive activities, and judicial activities, right? Or it is something which deals with what? All the activities which are performed by the government. So whether we talk about central government, whether we talk about state government, whether we talk about local government, whatever they does is nothing but an act of public administration. So the moment we use the term public, basically what we are trying to signify that we are actually dealing with governmental agencies. And what is government? What is state? Again, we'll see in more detail. But as of now, when we talk about this, then we can say state is a larger entity. For example, when we say India is a what? State. That means politically we are representing India as a state. And as we all know, the state should have four components. That is the government. So we have government of India. We should have a territory. So obviously we have a territory or boundaries, coastline, and so on. We must have population, that is citizen and non-citizen. So people also there, and India is a sovereign country also. Right. So whatever the affairs of the state are there, that is managed by the government on behalf of state. And for managing this, what government needs is nothing but administration, or precisely public administration. So am I clear with it now? So when we talk about the word public, basically we are attaching the importance of the word public to activities related with the government. If it is not public, then it would be a what? Private administration. And when we say private administration, again, the same thing will happen, but it would be for, let's say, multinational corporations, MNC, an individual and its entrepreneurship, right? You are doing some household activities or business and all those things. So these are examples of what? Private administration. But in our this particular topic, we are not concerned with the private administration, right? Our focus is more upon the public administration. That is nothing but the activities which are performed by what? These three things: legislature, judiciary, and executive, right? Yes or no? Perfect. But the problem is public administration as an activity is related with all the three things: legislature, judiciary, executive, or some particular place. So for that, what? There were certain views. So as far as public administration is concerned, the views of the scholars were slightly, differentiated. Like there are two types of views. One, it is called narrower view, right? So some scholars look public administration in narrower sense. Some scholars were of the opinion, no, it has a wider connotation. Now, what is narrower view and wider view of this particular term? So when we say narrower view and wider view, let's try to understand this. Now, if you, as I've told you, done your GS classes, then it's fine. If not, then you might be knowing that, let's say, state have three components, right? Legislature, executive, judiciary, for example. What is their job? Legislature means, in common terms, we call it parliament, right? So parliament is nothing but what? Legislature. And what is the job? To make laws. So legislature is involved in making laws, right? What is the job of executive? To implement the laws. So implementation of the laws, right, is nothing but role of executive. And judiciary is what? Responsible for interpretation of the laws. So they do the interpretation of the laws. Is it clear? So implementation of the laws, interpretation of the laws, and formulation of the laws. Basically, this is based upon the SOP. SOP stands for separation of power, which we'll study later on. But the people who are of the narrower view, they said that administration is something which is only concerned with activities of the executive branch. So, what the narrower view says? Narrower view talks about what? Activities which are related only with the executive side or executive branch of the government. But the wider view says what? The wider view says that no, the activities of public administration are related with all the three branches: legislature also, executive also, and judiciary also. So this is the wider view. So it's just a difference between their acceptance or views, right? Later on, we'll see that public administration is an activity which is from womb to tomb, right? That means we'll take wider view and mother's womb to death pyre tomb. This is the stretch of public administration. Means before our birth, we can say, and after our death, the activities of public administration continues, right? So very wide view of public administration is there, but that we'll see later. So by and large, now I hope that you might have got some bit of idea as far as the word public administration is concerned. But this is our understanding. Let's try to see what the scholars have said. So already we had seen what the scholars have said about administration. Now let's see, do they have some opinion on the term public administration? Right. So when we talk about the definitions given by them on public administration, let's say for example, right, the general definition, if we have to write what is public administration, it is nothing but what? Management of public affairs, as simple as that, or the management of governmental affairs, right? So management of public affairs or affairs at what? Sorry, of what? Of the government at all the levels. Okay. So at all the levels means wider view, that is legislature also, executive also, judiciary also. Plus, not only this, all the levels means also means at the national level, at the state level, and at the local level. Right. So it is a management of public affairs of the government, whether they are performing it at the central level, state level, or local. As simple as that. Or public administration is what? It's nothing but a machinery which deals with two things: policy formulation and policy implementation. So wider view. If a narrower view, then only implementation, not the formulation. So these are the general points which we can write if we have to write the definition. But what are the scholars' views as far as public administration is concerned? So let's talk about some of the scholars, like for example, a person known as F.A. or Felix A. Negro. What he says about public administration? He says that public administration is nothing but, or public administration can be defined as, so it can be defined as what? First, as I told you, a cooperative group effort, right? So cooperative group effort. Second, it covers all the three branches. Three branches here means legislature, executive, and judiciary. Third, it is nothing but formulation and implementation of public policy, right? And fourth is nothing but it is different from private administration, right? So now here we cannot change the definition because this was given by the scholars only. So F.A. Negro was of the opinion that public administration is what? Nothing but it's a cooperative group effort. It covers all three branches. Then it deals with the formulation and implementation of the public policy. And last but not the least, it is different from private administration. Similarly, when we talk about the other thinkers, then there was a thinker, right, known as Dwight Waldo or D. Waldo. We'll study about them in detail, don't worry. But what he says that public administration, I'm writing in short, is nothing but art and science of management. Very simple definition. So according to him, public administration is nothing but art and science of management. Similarly, Luther Gulick, again we'll study about him in Thinkers, and there is an acronym known as POSTCOP, right? So POSTCOP stands for planning, organizing, staffing, directing, coordinating, reporting, and budgeting. These are the activities which are performed in the administration. What he says that public administration is nothing but what? It is something which deals with the executive branch of the government. So he is of narrower view, executive branch of the government. Now you can understand who gives the narrower view, who gives the wider view, and so. Then similarly, we talk about another person known as L.D. White, Luther D. White. Now this person is the what? Author of the first textbook on public administration. He wrote the first textbook on public administration, known as Introduction to Public Administration. According to him, what is public administration? According to him, public administration is nothing but enforcement. So he says that public administration is nothing but enforcement of public policy. Right? So many people had given their different interpretation. But with that, we can see what the father of public administration has said as far as the public administration definition is concerned. So father means according to Woodrow Wilson. Now, when we talk about Woodrow Wilson, what he says that public administration is nothing but what? It's a detailed and systematic, execution of law. So it's nothing but detailed and systematic execution of the law is nothing but known as public administration. Is that clear? So now by looking at all these things or whatever the discussion we have done so far, I hope now you are a pretty comfortable position as far as the term public administration is concerned. So when we talk about this, now what we have done, we have started with the first unit or first chapter. In that we have started with introduction. Under introduction, we started with 3 topics: meaning, scope, and significance, out of which we have just now dealt with understanding the meaning of the term public administration. Right? So once we have completed the meaning, then now we are going to move to the second term, that is nothing but related with what? The scope of public administration. Right. So after understanding the meaning, let's move on to the scope of public administration. But but whatever we have discussed as far as the meaning is concerned, I hope now you are clear with it. If you have any doubts, please feel free to get in touch with us through the chat box, one-to-one interaction, or the email ID in the contact numbers provided to you by Sleepy Classes. You can get in touch with that. And as you all know that we continuously keep, the doubt clearing sessions from time to time. So you can join that as well. See, our ultimate objective as Sleepy Classes is nothing but to make you very comfortable as far as this particular optional is concerned. Why? Because optional is the game changer. In GS, almost all the students will perform on a similar lines. Their marks also are going to be somewhat on a similar lines. It is the optional which will actually decide whether we'll get the selection or not. Right? So I hope you understood the particular topic what we have discussed. Thank you so much for watching this particular video and looking forward to see you in the next class. Till then, take care. Bye bye. Have a great day ahead.